A pleasant morning, everyone. This morning, our group will discuss about Unit 11, Unpacking the Self. This lesson talks about knowing and understanding the underlying factors affecting generally the self. It is divided in 6 parts, which is the physical self, sexual self, material or economic self, spiritual self, political self, and digital self. With this, we are humbly asking everyone to please pay attention and listen carefully as we present our report.
Physical self is the initial source of sensation and necessary for the origin and maintenance of personality. The role of bodily organs is usually important in every developmental stage of a person's life. Later in life, the development of physical as well as the intellectual skills help determine whether the individual will achieve a sense of competence and ability to choose demanding roles in a complex society. In general, it is a concrete dimension, the tangible aspect of a person that can be directly observed and examined. It also improves our physical condition, our quality of life, and prevents physical and mental illness. It helps us to know each other and have more resources that provide us with well-being, improves the relationship with oneself and the people around us. There are periods of development. First is prenatal period, inception to birth, infancy period, birth to 24 months, early childhood, ended infancy to 6 years old, middle and late childhood, 6 years old to 11 years old, adolescence, 12 years old to 22 years of age, adulthood, late teens to senses stage, early childhood, late teens to 30 years old, middle adulthood is 35 years old to 60 years old, late adulthood is 60 years old until death. Genogram. A genogram is a visual representation of a person's family history and relationship. It goes within the typical family tree in that it allows the makers to see patterns and strategical aspects that influence relationship. A genogram is a visual representation of a family history and relationship. Genograms are visual representation of an important person in a person's life and their relationship with them. This tool aids specialists in determining where troubles and concerns arise within the family. In that field of social work, a genogram can be extremely useful. The body, sexuality, and the self. The body, this is magnificent container and complicated relation system through which we interact with our surroundings and fellow creatures. Is referred to a physical self. The physical self is a tangible component of a person that can be studied and observed directly. Human sex, family, female or male, and secondary sexual traits are thought to be determined by the sex chromosomes. Our genetic makeup has shaped us since we were children. It has an impact on, on our attitudes towards ourselves and others. Individuals who do not accept their intrinsic sexual features, on the other hand, often use drugs and surgery to alter their sexual organs. Aside from our DNA, the external environment or social plays a role in shaping our personalities. This lesson helps us better understand ourselves through a decision on the development of our sexual characteristic and behavior. The obsession to have a beauty face and body. The tragedy of Michael Jackson, endless surgery to alter face. Demand for cosmetic surgery, skin whiteners, eating disorders such as anorexia nervosa and bulimia. Malnutrition among young women due to improper weight of dieting. The golden ratio, the perfect face, Stephen Marquardt. It's rather impossible to achieve this golden ratio, but people still pay for it. Some are not satisfied with the way their partners look like and are attracted to more beautiful people. We often ask, why would you prefer to be rich or to be beautiful? Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. True, but if you could afford to have a looking partner, why not? It is but a big challenge to us educators and parents inculcate to the young that it's more important to be beautiful inside than outside. Plumpy, skinny, just right, sexy or chubby. As long as the fashion industry dictates what is beautiful. But for men or women, youth can never be satisfied with their bodies. Every culture will have standards for beauty. Middle age and the same tribes. Chubby, plumpy Hollywood and local showbiz. Skinny, sexy, six packs ad for men. Body art are a status of symbol, then and now, versus tattooing, sacrification, piercing, and body painting. Sexual self is an individual evaluation of his or her own sexual feelings and action. It is proposed as an important predictor of a contraceptive behavior among teenagers, and a scale of measuring the concept is described. The concept of sexual self first is sex. Sex is a label, male or female, based on the genitals you are born with. A person's identity based on their physical characteristics, genes, and hormones. Next is gender. Gender is a structure of social relations that centers on the reproductive arena and the sets of practices that bring reproductive distinctions into social processes. Next is the sexuality. Human sexuality refers to the person's sexual interest and attraction to others, as well as their capacity to have erotic experiences and responses. Next is sexual orientation. Term used to refer to a person's pattern of emotional, romantic, and sexual attraction to people of particular gender, male or female. Sexual orientation is usually divided in these categories. First is heterosexual, attracted to people of the opposite sex. Bisexual, attracted to people of either sex. Homosexual is attracted to people of one's own sex. Next is pansexual, attracted to people of any gender identity. Asexual, not sexually attracted to other people. Next is gender identity. Gender identity is an internal and individual experience of a gender. It is their sense of being woman, a man, both, neither, or anywhere along the gender spectrum. Person's identities may be the same as or different from their birth assigned sex. Moreover, gender identity is how you feel inside and how you express your gender through clothing, behavior, and personal appearance. Gender expression is how persons publicly present their gender. This can include behavior and outward appearance such as dress, hair, makeup, body language, and voice. Various experiences, clothing, and gestures may not show the gender of a person. Among the less gender are those who are more masculine in action and clothing. There are those who are feminine but are attracted to the same sex. Among the gay men, there are those who are feminine and there are those who are masculine. Among the gay and lesbian couples, it is decided that one should take the wife role and the husband role. Everybody desires to be happy, regardless of the sexual orientation and gender identity. Everybody wants to be happy, physical, sexual relationship, their lust, satisfaction, organs, free from diseases, sexually transmitted diseases, HIV/AIDS, acceptance and respect from the society, and productive lives. There are 4 areas of sexuality. First is physical, emotional, and psychological, and spiritual, and these are all interconnected. To prevent, to avoid, and to fight against discrimination, you must keep from fight against treating a person as a sex object. There should be a zero tolerance against sex, discrimination, and sex abuse. There are different forms of discrimination and abuse according to gender. Discrimination in the workplace insults causing physical injury, rape, and molestation. Therefore, everyone must uphold the care for the whole person.
The material self. According to William James, it refers to tangible objects, people, or places that carry the designation mine or mine. That means anything that we call mine is part of the material self. Such possessions are viewed as extensions of individuals' identities. William James further classified material self into 2, the bodily self and the extended self. Bodily self talks about the body itself, your head, shoulders, knees, and toes, while the extended self refers to the self that was created by external objects that surround oneself. It includes your family, friends, or places. So let me take you back to his illustration of the material self. Let's start with the innermost aspect of the material self, the body. I can do whatever I want with my body because it's mine, and certain parts of the body seem more intimately ours than the rest. The same goes for clothes. Ideally, I would wear something that would best represent me and will make me feel comfortable. For example, a girl likes to wear long sleeves. One day she's required to wear a backless top. For sure, she's gonna be uncomfortable because it's not just her style. Clothing says so much more about one's identity. So, because clothing is an extension of oneself, it has to be aligned with your identity. The same goes with the family, house, and other external objects. When we talk about the material self, it's not really about material things. Rather, it's our psychological ownership. So, how can we say that an entity is part of ourselves or something is just something? How can we say that something we own has become part of our extended self? First, we need to see if we are emotionally invested in that entity. Once we develop an emotional investment towards a person, place, or object, we can say that it's now part of our material self, our extended self. Next, we have symbolic self-completion. It refers to having or seeking social symbols of achievement regarding a goal important to one's self-identity. For example, a medical degree is one symbol of being a physician, and high scores on the Scholastic Aptitude Test are symbols of intelligence. When an individual has an ample supply of symbols regarding a particular self-defining goal, he or she will not need to seek additional symbols of completeness. However, if the individual perceives a deficit in symbols, efforts will be made to display symbols that restore completeness.
It is important to know that spirituality and religiosity are different from each other. A person can be spiritual without becoming religious. By definition, spirituality is the individual's pursuit for ultimate meaning through a personal understanding of the sacred. It is defined as relating to or affecting the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or physical things. On the other hand, religiosity entails believing in a god or a collection of gods and consciously adhering to their religion's principles. In the society, religion serves as a variety of purposes. This includes providing life meaning and purpose, sustaining social unity and stability, acting as a social control agency, supporting physical and psychological well-being, and encouraging people to work for positive social change. Symbols are used in different religions, and they are interpreted by anthropologists to discern important cultural values. Religion also offers religious myths that explains the universe's origin as well as the principles of order that govern existence. Four modern major religions have their myths. For Hinduism, they have Brahma, Krishna, Vishnu, Trimurti, and Devi. For the Islams, they have Muhammad and the angel Gabriel. For the Judaism and Christianity, they have Adam and Eve. And lastly, for the Taoism, they have the Jade Emperor, or also known as the Heavenly Grandfather. In religion, there is also what we call rituals. Rituals is the act of doing ceremonial acts as mandated by a sacred law or custom. All known societies demonstrate a distinct, observable way of conduct. As a result, a ritual can be seen as a technique of defining or categorizing humans. Lastly, we have the rites of passage. The rites of passage is a ritual that marks as an important stage in an individual's life cycle, such as rebirth, marriage, and death. There are four rites of passage. They are the rites of separation, rites of transition, rites of incorporation, and lastly, the rites of intensification.
The political self. First, let's talk about leadership. It is the process by which certain group members motivate and guide the group. It doesn't mean someone needs to be at the top for him or her to be influential. Let me tell you that when we say leadership, you can be a leader in your own little way. Politics, what is it? the art and science of governance, the process by which group of people make decisions. So it is an art because there is beauty in governance, a science because there is a method or a process. So, according to Aristotle, we are political animals. Man is a social being naturally drawn to various political involvements in order to satisfy the social needs. So, all of us are politicians because all of us are capable of making decisions. So, politics does not only exist in governance, it exists in everywhere where people make decisions. In class, household, and more, there are politics everywhere. Political life. When we say political life, it is a required consequence of man's social existence. So according to St. Thomas Aquinas, political life must follow the concept that the ruler and the ruled should be able to sustain the common good. When we say the ruler, it means the government. The ruled are the people or the citizens. So that a person can secure a place in the society, he must experience peace and order that can only be through a political environment. Political self and identity. The political self helps in defining the structure and functions of the government, in telling and understanding the relationship between the state and the citizens, in describing their rights, freedom, and obligation as citizens. So whether you like it or not, we are already involved in a political public sphere. And because of this, we have to be able to understand a relationship with the state, the government, because it is the state or the government that describes our rights, that gives our freedom and tells us our obligations as citizens. Citizenship becomes a salient basis for political self. When we say citizen, official member of a country, while democracy is from the Greek word means demos, for people's rule. It is a form of government in which the supreme power is given in the hands of the people. Now let's move on to the Filipino culture and the different values that makes us distinct among others. So we Filipinos strongly believe that our nation has the best values in the world. Although we have been colonized by several countries, a number of core values from our ancestors remain complete and are still followed and honored to this day. First, family orientation. So the basic and the most important unit of Filipinos' life is the family. Hospitality, compassionate, industry and hard work, spirit of kinship and camaraderie. Filipinos communities always share their helping hands unconditionally. Ability to survive. Filipinos also have a strong faith in God. Pakikipagkapwa-tao, it means treating others with respect and dignity as an equal. Joy and humor, the famous trait of Filipinos. Lastly, flexibility, adaptability, and creativity. So we also have negative Filipino values. The crab mentality, procrastination that we always do, the bahala na habit, and the Filipino time, which is associated with tardiness. So, in conclusion, we human being, we are political animal. We cannot live in a society where there is no law and order, no government, no leader. It is possible, but it would be very, very difficult for us to survive without the existence of all of this.
The digital self, the development and expression of the self and the identity of social networking sites, adolescence, and SNS. Adolescence is defined as a period of physical, cognitive, and emotional changes the individual undergo as they navigate from childhood to adulthood. There are three types of adolescent self-esteem. The number one, the self-concept, which is the idea of oneself constructed from the belief one holds about oneself and the responses of others. Number two is the personal self-esteem, is the largely effective response to the self. It is also used as the person's overall subjective sense of personal worth or value. Number three is the collective self-esteem. It is the aspect of an individual's self-image that stems from how the individual interacts with other groups or a certain individual part of it. According to the theory, the results from the study of Brillantes Evangelista by and Ding Kong, 2013, adolescence identity construction is a process of forming an autonomous self who is presented to the audience. Personal identity refers to personality attributes of an individual which are not shared with other people. And social identity, this aspect of individual's concept that stems from their knowledge of their membership with a certain social group. Facebook use. Facebook was originally designed only for Harvard University students. As the demand and popularity for social media networks grew throughout the world, Facebook, as a controlled setting, becomes a venue for the college student to engage in their identity construction. Facebook is a platform for creating a space for self-revelation and assertion, which is a disclosure of their personal information and their assertion of who they are or what they want others to see about them. It provides online personal space, which is an essential aspect in exploring their identities. Projecting needs and preferences. Usually, it can be seen who you really are when you're with family compared to when you're with your friends. It is a space for the participants to project their emotional needs and preferences. Creating a virtual surrogate groups, which is the individual's relationships somehow shape their identity construction by allowing their online social groups define how they present themselves. Experimenting on a different identity. The individuals explore and experiment on their identities by trying out different aspects of themselves and new roles. By creating multiple accounts, these adolescents are able to create their different selves coexisting in virtual groups or world. Managing impressions and positive self-presentation. Individuals depict happy and pleasant disposition in their Facebook accounts by showing their socially desirable features. They construct their ideal selves in front of their audience. So, what's wrong with using social networking sites? It becomes unhealthy when it replaces reality or replaces on-ground social interaction. When virtual reality becomes the basis of social gratification, self-esteem, and identity.